Hello everyone, welcome to another Java for Android tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to talk about if statements and operators. I'm going to use the same hello world program that we have used before. Let's delete the print statement as we no longer require it. I'm going to create a variable called bool and assign it a value true. We're going to use this bool in our if statement implementation. And the syntax for if statement is there's the if and then followed by open brackets, close brackets, and then followed by flower brackets, open and close. So this is the if syntax, and within the parenthesis is the condition that we want to check, and within the flower brackets is the statements that we want to execute if the condition satisfies. So the condition that I'm going to give inside the if is the operator or the variable that we just created, and it's bool. So let me print out a statement if the condition satisfies, and I'm going to call it the variable is true. So if I execute this, let's see what happens. So as you see, the variable is true is printed. That's because the if condition is satisfied. So if the boolean is true, this gets executed. If not, it will just pass through. But if we want to handle something that passes through, we will create something called as the else block that's next to the if block. So if the condition satisfies, the if block gets executed. If not, the else block will get executed. Let me create a print statement here as well so that you can see the variable is false. So when I run this, since the variable is true, the if block gets executed. If I change it to false, now the false block or the else block will get executed. The false statement will get executed. Let's talk about operators now. We will discuss the if else statement more in detail when we look at the operators. There are several types of operators in Java, and the first type that we are going to look at is the equality operator, and it is denoted by two equal to signs. Notice that there is no space between the equal to signs, and if there's a space, it will not work. I'm going to create two variables called int variable1. I'm going to assign it a value of 10 and create another variable called variable2 and assign a 10 for this variable as well. To give an example of the equality statement, I'm going to use the if block that we just learned before, and if, and I'm gonna check if the variable is equal to the variable 2. Notice that these two statements are different. The assignment statement indicates that the value of 10 is assigned to the variable 1, but here we say that the variable 1 is equal to variable 2 or not. So if the variable 1 is equal to variable 2, then the if block is true. If not, the else block becomes true here. So let me print out something so that you can understand better. I'm going to call it the variables are equal. And I'm going to print something else here. The variables are not equal. So let's run it. As you see, since the variables are equal, this got executed. And if I change one of the variables to 100, since they're not equal, the else block got executed. There is a slight change to the equality operator, and we can denote that by an exclamation mark instead of one of the equal to signs, and this means that if variable 1 is not equal to variable 2, then print this, which becomes the variables are not equal, and this becomes the variables are equal. Now let's print this again. As you see, if the variable 1 is not equal to variable 2, which is true because one of the variables is 10 and the other is 100, this statement gets executed. And if the variables are equal, this if statement is not true and the else statement gets executed, which is the variables are equal. Let's talk about the next type of operators. The next type of operator is called as relational operators, and as the name suggests, it brings out the relation between variables. So they are greater than, lesser than, greater than or equal to, and lesser than or equal to. Let's create two variables again. I'm going to give this a value of 20 and then give this value of 10. Let's have the same if statement and then an else. And inside the if, I'm gonna compare these two operators. If variable 1 is greater than variable 2, then I'm gonna print variable 1 is greater, and on the else part I'm gonna print variable 2 is greater. So since variable 1 is greater than variable 2, which is what actually is, the first statement got executed, which is variable 1 is greater. And if I change this to 30, now variable 2 becomes greater, and then the else part gets executed. Now what if the statements are true? What if both the values are true? The else part will get executed. That's because we just say that if variable 1 is greater than variable 2, just print this, else just print this, whatever it is. We can handle the exception here. We can say that if variable 2 is greater than variable 1, we say that variable 2 is greater. Now if we run this, you see nothing gets executed. This is because it checks for if variable 1 is greater than variable 2, it prints this, and this, since in this case this is not true, it goes and checks if variable 2 is greater than variable 1, which is also not true, and it just passes through. So if we want to check if the variables are equal, we need another condition, and here we say that they are equal. Okay, so now it prints that they are equal. Now what if you don't want to have a separate else statement? We want to handle something here. I'm going to remove this else part, and I'm going to add this here. Variable 1 is greater or they are equal. To do that, we use something called as the greater than or equal to statement, which means if variable 1 is greater than or equal to variable 2, the if part gets executed. If not, if variable 2 is greater than variable 1, the else part will get executed. So let's print this. So here, since they are equal, it says variable 1 is greater or they are equal. And similarly, we can do it for lesser than, and that's the lesser than or lesser than and equal to, and it follows the same thing. Variable 2, here it changes to lesser and lesser, and I'm going to change this to 2. So since they're equal, the first statement got executed. Now I'm gonna change one of the variables to 10. It says variable 2 is lesser now, since we changed it to the lesser. The last type of operator that we are going to look at is something called as the conditional operator. And operation, or operation, and then not operation. We have already discussed about the not operation, but let's see the not operation in detail. For explaining this concept, I'm going to use a boolean called bool1 and assign it a value of true, and another boolean and assign it a value of true as well. Let's use an if statement to explain this. So if bool1 and bool2, I have an if block, and then let's have an else block as well. So let's have a print statement here. So inside the print statement, I'm going to say that bool1 and bool2 is true, and then on the else part I'm going to say not true. So creative. Okay, so if we run this now, since bool1 and bool2 are both true, the if block got executed and the else block is not. This is because, so the ampersand sign, the two ampersand signs, is the AND operation, and which means if both conditions satisfy, then the if block will get executed or the else block will get executed. So if one of the variables is false, let's try that, it's not true. And if both the variables are false, then again it's not true. So we need to have all the variables that are in the AND to be true for the if block to satisfy. We can add in more variables as well. So I'm going to say this as true, and I'm going to add this to bool3, and here, and bool3 are true. Okay, so not true because both are false, so I'm going to change this to true again. So as you see, all three are true. Even if one of the variables is false, the else block will get executed. Now OR statement is a bit different. So it also can have multiple values. So here for our statement, all the three need not be true. At least one should be true. So I'm going to say at least one is true. One of the values should be true for the OR statement to work. Let's run this. So here, as you see, two values are true. It will work. And if I change this to false, one of the values is true, so it will also work. And if I'm going to change it to false again, then it will not work, and the else block will get executed. This is because for our statement we need at least one of the values to be true. And similarly for the not statement, we know that before. So just performs a not operation, which means if it's true it returns false, and if it's false it returns true. So I'm going to say bool 1 is true and not true. So since this is a not operation, this gets flipped. So if not bool 1, so bool 1 is false, which means that if bool 1 is false, this becomes true and the if block will get executed. If not, the else block will get executed. That's it for this tutorial. I will see you guys in the next tutorial. This is Alex Vijayaraj. Have a good one.